Hey everybody, I'm Suzanne, and in today's video we're going to paint a cougar. No, not that kind of cougar. This kind of cougar. And I am just going to do her face, and I'm going to take you step by step through the process. I'm going to call out what I'm doing, and you can follow along if you like. And if you're not a subscriber, go ahead and smash that subscribe button, ring the bell, you'll know when the next cool video comes out. And this will also be on Patreon. So if you want to see a longer, real-time, in-depth video that covers everything, step by step, almost everything. And when I say everything, I'm talking about what's going through my mind at the time that I'm painting it, blah, blah, blah. And that can be a whole weird kind of place to go. But go ahead, check out my Patreon and you'll see what I'm talking about. So yes, let's go ahead and jump into this little cougar piece. Okay, so here's our starting palette. Of course, I've got my King's Blue. Now I have two very similar colors here. This one is manganese violet, and this one is something magenta. The difference is one is transparent or semi-transparent, one is opaque. Oh, this is cobalt violet and manganese violet. Obviously with the cobalt, we're gonna have more opacity. So even though these colors are very similar, you know, I'm going with the opacity aspect. Again, same situation here. I have, oh goodness gracious, cobalt teal, opaque, and I have phthalo turquoise, more a semi-transparent. I've got two, this is titanium buff, titanium white. I have yellow ochre, burnt sienna, it's kind of sliding. I got Van Dyke brown, ultramarine blue. I have ivory black, we know it's runny here, and I also put lamp black. Again, I'm going for some more opacity because what I'm wanting to do here, I'm going to do this little mountain lion, and I already see corrections based on my sketch, but anyway, I'll make them as I go. You know how I do, I kind of alter as I paint, but I want to give this cat a real dramatic dark background. So today I'm just gonna get it blocked in. I've got tomorrow to work on it, and yeah, I wanna see where I can go. I found myself having just finished one piece. Actually, I just finished two pieces. And I wanna start a big one, another horse, but I wanted to have a little something for Patreon and YouTube. So this is what I'm starting today, and I'm gonna see how far I can get with it. Let's go. Here's our brush lineup, or at least our starting lineup. We've got the number 5 Eclipse Long Filbert. I have a number 1 Eclipse Long Filbert. I have a number 6 Long Filbert that's an ivory. And then I have a number 5 Shiraz Filbert. I've also thrown down, handy dandy paint scraper, Creative Mark. Love these things. These are wonderful. And so the substrate I'm painting on is a super smooth gessoed panel. And I did leave it white intentionally because I have lots of whiskers and things that I want to cut in using this puppy right here. So I'm going to mix a background color and be very mindful of my actual structure of the cat, because I can see some corrections that are going to happen here, but so I'm kind of doing it on the fly. So we'll see where it goes. I've got to mix a background color, and one color I did not put on my palette that I probably would like to have on here is a cadmium red. Now, I am doing this mountain lion, and I'm doing her in a very, very dark background. So I want the bright, warm colors that are going to show up in her fur to really show up, because they're going to also be dark. And I need to have some type of contrast with whether I go with a nearly black background versus, you know, if I went with a lighter background, it might be easier to show out. But I want this to be a little bit mysterious. So I'm going to go grab some cadmium red. I'll be right back. So the background color that I mixed here was using lamp black and cadmium red. And the reason I chose a lamp black over ivory black was that I wanted the opacity. Since I am painting on a slick gessoed Masonite panel, I wanted that coverage. So that is the black I'm blocking in the background, and I need that wet edge. And while I'm actually blocking in the background, I'm making corrections to my sketch that I did as well. As I start blocking in the cat itself, I am starting basically with a lot of the dark values and just trying to get the shapes in. So yeah, I'm using a smaller brush. This happens to be a long filbert. It's an Eclipse, probably a size, it's probably a size 2. It's pretty small. And I'm just kind of blocking in all the dark values first. While I have the wet background, I went ahead and signed the piece by using the paint scraper, and I'm also putting in some of the whiskers by just, scraping out the paint. Unfortunately, I can't put all the whiskers in as much as I'd like to, but I will get some more in here. Any on the exterior part of the cat, I'll be able to put those whiskers in. So I'm definitely watching for color and temperature shifts, and you can see how one part of the underside of the cat has that cool gray color from the chin back to the point of the neck, and then it turns to a warm color. So I'm constantly looking for breaks and color shifts and all that good stuff when I'm blocking in. Often when I am just blocking in, when we're at the very early stages of the painting, I am squinting a lot of the times. And that's allowing me not to see the detail. So, yeah, except for when you're cutting in whiskers, because that's the fun part. But with my eyes squinted, I can only see the blocks of color. And it's the most simplistic version of the cat. So as I open my eyes up a little bit, I start to see the variation in the color. So you can see I keep going up to the top where I have my manganese violet and I have my cobalt violet up there. The difference between the two, although the hue looks very similar, the cobalt violet is an opaque color. And knowing where to use, when I need opacity versus semi-transparency, all depends on the area that I'm painting. So that's why oftentimes I'll have a opaque version of a similar color on my palette. And I'm just kind of popping in the details where I can, just starting to, even though I'm still in the very early blocking in stages. The eyes are always fun to do, and I'm going in with a small eclipse filbert and just starting to put the color of the eye in. And I went with the lighter version. Of course, this cat did have a blue eye. Cougar's eyes can vary from a light gold to a light green, turquoise, and blue. And this one had a blue eye, so this was fun. And it's always a little bit darker at the top of the eye, simply because you have that eyelid. The upper eyelid does cause a shadow. So I'm popping in the little bits of color that I can see, and this is always fun. I always enjoy this part. In another note here, your big cats generally do not have the typical pupil that you see in your house cats, and they do have a round pupil, not a slitted or a vertical slitted pupil. So just because of the angle that this photo reference that I'm using, it does look a little bit slanted, but it is a round pupil. And just popping in the color, putting in the detail where I can. And I wanted to put in, there's eyelashes on this upper lid. And so I made the lid look sort of black. And you'll see, I'll go in here and start popping in the little hairs. And I just found those to be interesting. So the eyelashes are fun. And meanwhile, I just keep moving around the piece. And I keep putting in little bits of color. And the stroke that I'm using, when I'm using, this is still one of the Eclipse rounds. This is a very small round brush, but when I'm using, whether I'm using this or I'm using the dagger brush, I'm using one of the smaller daggers, like the 1/8 inch. I am sometimes not really doing a full hair stroke. I'm oftentimes just popping it, almost like poking it. Now I know that sounds really odd, but you'll see, there's oftentimes just parts of the hair that you see the coloration in. And so I'm going back and forth between light values and dark values. And so I'm really mixing it up a lot on this piece. YouTube followers, subscribers, and Patreon people through conversations we have in the comment section. And Astrid she's awesome. Astrid is an artist in the Netherlands. Check her out. Her page on Instagram is Mini Bull Mooney. Look it up, Mini Bull Mooney. She does this beautiful art, a lot of dog portraits on like wood, like blocks of wood. Excuse me. She's very talented. She is amazing, but I have fun talking to her. Oh, hey. I oftentimes will flip my paintings over or turn them on the side, depending on which way is most comfortable for my hand to create a certain stroke. And in this case, since I'm doing all these little hairs, it does help me to have this upside down. And so if you do choose to flip your canvas or your substrate and paint upside down, it's pretty important that you go ahead and flip your photo reference as well. Now I'm using a color here. This is a titanium white with just a tad of yellow ochre in it, and I'm putting in these light hairs. So you almost have to have some of the dark hair underneath it so that these light hairs show up on top. So you can see that I'm actually layering the color, and I'll even go back in and put more dark values in. So I will go back and forth between the light and the dark. I often call this seesawing, where I just go back and forth until I get the effect that I'm wanting. And but generally you would put the darker mid-tone range on the bottom first, and then layer up with your other colors, your darks and lights. But yeah, I'm starting to get into the fun part, and I love detail. And generally you do not have to put detail in everything you do, but oh my gosh, this is an 8x10, and an 8x10 is really easy to go in and just make it super, super detailed because it's just so much fun. I've made adjustments again on the neck, and I've actually brought it down a little bit more, thickened it up just a tad. And I like to keep that soft edge, so I'll often go back, re-wet my background color so that I can create the soft edge. And so that's what that, you can see how that softens up a little bit for me. And I do not want to bring that, I want to keep it soft in the background and keep my detail closest to you. So you'll see, I'll oftentimes will, I get to be a little bit more deliberate in where I do and don't put detail in. Don't forget, folks, this too will also be on Patreon. So if you want to see the full version of this with all the explanation of the palette, please check out my Patreon channel. It's so fun to stack hair. And so I have to have the darker values down first, the creases of where the folds in this cat's forehead is. And then I put the mid-tone in. You have to overlap some of it onto those dark creases. And then you'll put the lighter values on top. And you'll just keep, going back and stacking and stacking. And this is fun. I mean, this is where I'm actually really, really into this piece. And I keep getting interrupted on this particular day. People were coming into the studio. I'd have to stop just when I was getting to the good parts, But I did manage to get this done today, regardless. So, I'm getting into this ear area and just I'm moving across this cat. And I'm enjoying every minute of it. And you can see I am still stacking colors, so I'm going in with the lighter colors here. And you can see how that you put the light colors right on top using one of my dagger brushes. And sometimes when you have a dagger brush that is well worn and happens to be a little bit frayed, there's an advantage. Those are good tools. You don't throw those out because those end up doing your more random short hairs, and they work great for that. I flipped it again. And again, this makes it just easier for my hand to create those strokes. And so you can see I have an assortment of grays going in. And there's a lot of pinky grays. And that, they're still cool, but they're interesting. And it does create that white area under the chin, a little bit more depth and interest. And you can see how some of the colors they're variant. You end up having some yellows and golds mixed with some purples and yellows. I mean, there's a lot of color. There's a lot of fun color to play with here. And knowing how to manipulate the values to create the shadows of the actual structure of the skull, and where you can tell the upper jaw from the lower jaw, all of that comes in when you're doing the just popping that color in. And you can see I'm using a lot of purples here, and the purples underneath the cheekbone. It all creates the form. Creating all the ruff in the back of the neck is a lot of fun, and I do have that soft edge that is closest to the actual back and background of the cat. So you can see that I'm just always trying to keep the soft edge where the cat and the background meet, and then put the detail, the sharp detail, like all these little hairs and all this fun stuff goes in on top. So it did help to have that dark values put down first, so I can pop these little hairs in on top. Now I am using a dagger brush, and oftentimes I have the brush being held actually upside down. So I'm using just the tip and point in some areas where it looks kind of just like spots. And then here you can see I'm putting in actual hairs that look like hairs, but then I might flip that brush over and just use the little point to do the little specks. There's lots of little fun stuff in there. And here you can see the soft edge now a little bit better. But this, I could do stuff like this all day long, just doing the hairs like this. A lot of fun for me. finishing up with some of the last detail, and you know, I want to roll the edges so you can see there's, you know, right here by the, you know, the cheekbone and the eye bones here, and I'm just rolling the edge so you can see they're higher in the center of the bone, and here darkening this edge and then lightening it up on the top portion because that's another structure. So knowing and understanding the structure does help when you're doing the painting. And I am just lightly poking the light values on top, and that is creating that fur, that short fur on the cat's face. And you know we're getting close to the end because, well, the whiskers are going to be going in. So when you start just doing little hairs on the nose and whiskers, you know you're almost finished. But this has been such a fun piece to do, and yeah. Here we go. So I'm using a dagger with a finer edge. This time I do not want the frays. And sometimes doing whiskers like this can be nerve-wracking because you don't want to make them too straight, because the whiskers will often dictate or show the emotion that cat happens to be feeling at that time. Is this cat angry? Is this cat scared? So I want the whiskers to be somewhat relaxed, and knowing how to put those in correctly to make it look like, you know, the actual emotion or feelings that this cat happens to be expressing at the moment. So yeah, getting the whiskers in, always the fun and one of the last things we do. And here we have the finished piece. And know that I had so much fun with this piece, and I got a little carried away, I guess at times, with the detail, because that's the fun part. And this is a small piece. It's only an 8 by 10. So it gives you an opportunity to really, you know, get that little tiny fun detail stuff in. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed today's video. And if you did, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're not a subscriber, you know what to do. Go ahead and smash the subscribe button. Go ahead and do that. And if you have any questions about anything I covered in today's video, please leave it in the comments section and I'll get to you, I promise. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed it. And oh, look for this one on Patreon too, okay? So from Kingsport, Tennessee, I want to thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time. Bye.